So Gemar Tov, everybody. And good Yontif, and good Yontif. The marathon continues, huh? I use that word marathon with a little bit of trepidation because many know that in addition to this spiritual marathon that we're currently in, the intense 25-hour period of Yom Kippur, of davening, and then davening some more if you come back tonight, and then Sukkot, and Shmini Atzeret. If you're really in it for the distance, there is probably no better word to use for this season than the word marathon. There's no other way to put it. But I'll tell you that for me, I use that word with a little extra trepidation and nervousness this year because many know that in addition to this spiritual marathon that we're doing now, I'm also training on the side for a physical marathon. For one that I hope, God willing, I will be able to complete. 26.2 miles for the first time, October 22nd. Oy, I know. I managed the half marathon in the spring without too much service. I don't know how, but I'm really hoping, God willing, that with enough strength and with enough faith and with enough Gatorade and with enough protein bars and all the important things in life, I will be able to make it across that finish line and say Shehechianu for the first time, completing that goal, and greet Kaylee there, who, God willing, will have a beer and a falafel or something, and it will all be worth it. But I got to tell you on a very personal level, this longer distance running that I've been getting into, it's become for me sort of a spiritual path. It's become a part of my connection to God. It's very meditative for me. I leave everything behind for that hour before the day starts or that hour after the day concludes, and I lace up my shoes and I find that there's a peace and that there's a rhythm to those moments, the breathing and the sights and everything about it. To me, it is very spiritual. To quote another rabbi, I find it like praying with your feet. I really do. So naturally, all the ideas for all the sermons this year, through Rosh Hashanah right up into this moment, they were mostly born on those longer distance runs that I had, in particular this morning, thinking about the ways in which life is so much like running a marathon. I got to thinking about the challenges that I've faced and the lessons that I've learned in my training off the bima, and I really hope that whether you've ever found any enjoyment in running or biking or swimming or walking a distance or anything like that, or whether you think it makes no sense at all and the mere idea of it sounds crazy to you, and you're thinking to yourself right now, a running rabbi? Who is this guy? Even still, I hope you'll leave this sanctuary today after this intense 25-hour Yom Kippur spiritual marathon that we're all on, holding on to some of the lessons that I've needed and that I've cherished along the way. The first thing you realize when you're running a longer distance is that you need an anchor. You need something to keep you grounded. You need something to keep you focused. You need something to keep you motivated and true to who you are and your vision for why you're doing this thing, because the mind has a way of playing tricks. It's what we call in Jewish tradition the Yetzer Hara, that voice of discouragement. Whether you've run a marathon or not, you've heard the voice I'm talking about. It's the voice, and for me it usually pops in around mile 10, sometimes around mile 6, sometimes in the first 5 minutes of the run, that says you should just stop, Why are you doing this? What's the point? Who do you think you are? You're a big phony. Go home, take your shoes off, get into bed, pull the covers over your head, forget the goal. You can't do it. That's the Yetzer Hara voice. You've heard it, I'm sure. And when that voice pops in, whether you're running or not, my question for you, what's your anchor? What's that thing that you hold on to that gives you the strength to put that voice aside, to take another step, and then another, and then another, and then again? An anchor can be a lot of things. It could be a mental phrase. Like in Jewish tradition, we use words from our prayers, words from the Psalms as a kind of mantra. Esa einai el haharim, I lift my eyes unto the mountains. Me'ayin yavo ezri, God, will you be my help? And it can be a mantra that keeps us moving. An anchor can be a person who we rely on when we're ready to stop. Someone who we call or text, who we know will help us to keep going. It can be a memory of someone who's passed from this earth, who's done something great, who's accomplished something, whose strength we admire, and that keeps us moving. It can be an image. It can be something tangible. It could be something that means absolutely nothing to anybody else in this world, but to me it means everything. It's my anchor. And I don't care if you understand it. It's the thing that gives us reason. It gives us purpose through the tough trials of life. I clipped a New York Times piece that was entitled, "What They Saved." Did anyone see this piece? Incredible photography. What They Saved. It's a photo essay that showed the kind of things that people wanted to keep, that people wanted to salvage in the midst of the chaos and the loss of really bad hurricanes and storms. You know, the kind of storms that change your life forever. What's the thing that you hold on to, that you want to keep, that keeps you going? One story showed a picture of a chipped teacup rescued from a trash bag that was going to be thrown out. A young woman retrieved this little chipped cup among a pile of rubble because she knew how much it meant to her grandmother, since it had originally belonged to her grandmother's mother, and that person had passed away 20 years earlier. And so she only found this one chipped cup that was destined for the garbage, but she was, if you see the picture, so grateful to be able to take a sip from that broken cup, because it had, in the midst and the aftermath of a storm, a calming effect. It connected her to who she was. It connected her to her past when she didn't know if she could keep going. And so she found that anchor. It's no exaggeration, and we all know it. Everybody in the room knows it in a different way. The marathon of life throws us down. It knocks us down in ways that are unbearably difficult, in ways where we say, God, how could you? How could you do this to me? Why? And when that does happen, what anchor do you have that connects you to the people you love, that connects you to our heritage, that connects you to that which is within you, that keeps you moving? One of my anchors in running, I'll tell you, is a man you've probably never heard of. His name is Jeff Bauman. He was one of the runners who was injured in the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. And as a result of that horrific terrorist attack and tragedy, he was a hardcore runner who loved marathons, who lost both of his legs in that bombing. But his life in the aftermath is something that I hold close to. It's an anchor for me of incredible strength, because he says, and as he continues to regain strength, sometimes walking to the end of the street with my prosthetics feels like running a mile or 2 or 10. And yet he found through that tragedy not only a strength to get up again, to walk again, to move again, but then to write a book, which I hope you'll all find and read, called Stronger, that went on to become a movie, so that he could share with anybody who needed just a little strength, just a small anchor in the aftermath of something so senseless and so horrible that they could read that book or hear his story or watch the movie and feel, well, maybe I can do it too. He had the anchor. What's yours? Of course, this morning is a morning of Yizkor. We remember the ways in which we carry the strength of those who came before us, our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. You know, I'll remind you, in the Torah, it said that the people of Israel made a point to carry the remains, carry the bones of Joseph with them. They carried Joseph because they couldn't leave him in Egypt. They had to take him along. And their distance, it was a lot more than 26.2 miles, I'll tell you that. But they wanted with them everything he represented: his strength, his connection to his parents and their parents. That anchor gave them strength to keep on moving. Who do you carry with you? What do you carry with you through the marathon of life? What was given to you by those who came before you? Have you done everything you can to perpetuate, to lift up that legacy, to give it to your children, that expresses your beliefs and your convictions, that it might anchor them one day when you're gone, when they need it most? First lesson, find your anchor. Second lesson I've learned on this crazy journey toward 26.2, expect turns. Man tracht und, you know it? Man tracht und Gott lacht. We say it with tired faces. We say it with frustrated faces. We say it with expressions of concern because we know it is the great Jewish expression of the idea that this world we look to in 5784 with hopes, with pleas, we say, please God, make this a good year. But who knows? I can view the course for the marathon that I'm running. I can look at every single detail. I can know where the elevations are, where the downhill's going to be. I can check the weather 100 times before the day of the race. But you know what? Doesn't matter. I don't know what it's really going to be like when I get there. Man tracht und Gott lacht. Man plans and God laughs, so expect some turns. Requires us to be able to do two things. Requires us to be present when the turns end up being more beautiful, when the turns end up being more inspiring than we ever thought possible, when I'm running and the light hits the trees in the morning just right. It requires us to notice that, and the turns require us, too, to be resilient when they're unexpectedly difficult, when they test the limits of what we think we're capable of as human beings, when they test our strength, test our faith. Sometimes the turns on the marathon of life are more beautiful than we could have imagined, and we miss them if we're not in the moment to appreciate them. It's a famous story that's told of a Rabbi who was once observed watching a man walking on a tightrope across a building. And his students wondered about the Rebbe. Why is he watching this with so much interest? What does he care? He's the Rebbe. He should have his head in a book. He should be davening. He should be studying. Who cares if some Meshuggah, a guy, is walking across a tightrope? What does it matter? For what? The rabbi explained it as follows. He said, this man is risking his life. Why? I cannot say. But of this I am certain. While he is walking that rope, he's not thinking of anything else in the world. He is in that moment fully. For if he thought of anything else, surely he would fall. This is a lesson worth learning in life. It's a lost art, mindfulness. We say that the Eastern traditions have the monopoly on mindfulness and presence. It's wrong. We get caught up in so many things in life, we forget to remain present for the simplest and the most important. It's why Yom Kippur, this day, has such an urgency about it. Liturgy of Yom Kippur screams to everybody, this is your life, face it, don't miss it. Too many people, it says, rush through life. They want to get to the other side. For what? People who spend 26.2 miles thinking about and waiting for that 2 seconds when they'll finally cross the finish line, they miss the whole race. Think about today, all the things that you want to do in life, but you've been putting off and waiting for the right time to do. Yom Kippur says life is too precarious for that. Don't wait too long to live. I can't tell you, and I almost laugh when I think about it, how often, as an officiating rabbi, people say to me things like, Rabbi, we're so grateful you're officiating the wedding. Make sure, though, we want to keep the ceremony just around 20 minutes, and if you can get it a little shorter, that would be great. And can you rush the bar mitzvah? Because we have somewhere to be after. And can you make sure, by the way, Rabbi, that the eulogies are nice and concise? Because we don't want to sit and remember for too long. Rush. The most meaningful moments in life, people ask me, rush through them. I say to you, be present. When your life turns toward a new chapter, when you have one of those life-defining moments, you have to know what the psalmist wrote when he said that our lives are like a breath, that our days are like a passing shadow. He's not wrong. 5783 came and went in a blink. For so many of us. Just as difficult, though, to be present when the turns we take are not joyful ones and turns that are filled with gratitude, but difficult ones, painful ones. You've heard of earthquakes. I know a lot of people in this room have experienced in this past year what we call life quakes. The kinds of things that shake you to your core. We review a year in which people in this room, I know, were surprised with a diagnosis. People in this room lost a loved one or multiple loved ones over the course of the year, unexpectedly, some of us, too soon. These are the turns that just come out of nowhere, that shake us off the course of life, that take your legs out from under you and throw you right off balance, where you're not the same person halfway through the race as you were when you started it. And we wonder, will I be able to keep going? How can we be present in those moments too? I'll share with you, early on in my marathon training, one piece of advice that someone gave me that I thought was crazy then, but I've come to appreciate it. He said, before you start the race, I want you to close your eyes, not stretching, just sitting. Spend 5 minutes picturing in your mind's eye, visualizing yourself crossing that finish line. Crazy. I'm going to spend my time stretching and drinking water. I'm not sitting there meditating on what I'll look like crossing the finish line, but the idea has grown on me. When we're stuck, we need to be able to see what a finish line looks like. We need to be able to say to ourselves, though this turn for the worse in life may last many miles, it may last days, it may last weeks, it may last years, it may last decades, perhaps there will be a moment when I am crossing a finish line of sorts. Maybe there is a possibility, however slim, for a different and better future, for a learning through this, a growing through this, a moving forward. And who can I be, and what will I look like at the end of it? Yom Kippur, this day, is about seeing the story of our life in all its fullness. We take that zoomed out view of our lives. We look at the blessings. We look at the curses. We look at all the years of life, and we say to ourselves today, who would I like to be at the finish line? What will that picture of me look like? What will the book of life say about the story of the life that I wrote? Will it be a story of vulnerability, but of faith and perseverance? Will others be proud to see it and to read it? Can I know that with the support of the people I care about and the support of people in this room, I may very well have a strength to get to a place that I never thought I could reach at mile 8. I never thought I would make it to mile 10 or 12 or 15. And that brings me to my final reflection on these marathons of life that we run, which is rely on others. Don't be afraid to rely on one another. Know the value in this world of me, of I got this, of I'm embarrassed to ask for help, and all of us get that way. Know the value of being a part of something greater than yourself. Everybody thinks running is a solo sport. It ain't. It really isn't. When I first started, I thought, oh, this is something I'll just do for me. This is just my time. I got to tell you, anybody who's ever done it knows running alone is infinitely harder than running with a group, with hundreds of people, with thousands of people around you running a marathon. People who could never do a 10K, let alone a half marathon, if they're alone, they do it with other people standing there talking to them, pushing them on. The energy of a group. It's remarkable. I always remember the saying, if you want to run fast, run alone. If you want to run far, run together. Life is like that. Jewish life is like that. We live in a world, sadly, where the concept of friendship has been cheapened. Can you know in that world what a chaver, what a true friend is, and how to be one? We live in a world of one-on-one therapy, and now I'm told you don't even need another person. You can use AI as your therapist. In that world, can you know the catharsis and the healing and the strength and the support that community can bring into your life? The power of what we do here on a day like today, on a morning like this morning, it's remarkable. People leave shuls. They say, I don't need synagogue. I don't need community. And then life happens. And then one of those turns that I spoke about earlier happens. And they look around and they wish they had a place to come like this, and people to call like the people in this room. There's a genius to the idea of Jewish mourning and remembering as a group of what we do today on a day of Yizkor. That remembrance be done in a minyan with a large group. It's an incredible, powerful idea. The idea that you might be remembering a father, and you a mother, and someone else a son, and they're all different people, but all of us still standing here together, holding one another in that way, connected in our heritage, connected in our desire, just to feel close to them. There's an incredible strength in that. Of course, I do have to mention too, anybody who's ever mourned Jewishly knows that it's also challenging to mourn and be sad around other people, people who don't know what to say, people who offer words of comfort that fall flat, people who make a Shiva experience that's supposed to be a comforting experience just about the party and the food. Maybe you know the one about the guy who's dying, and as he lays in his bed, contemplating his impending death, he smells the aroma of his wife's kugel. Do you know this one? Which he loves. And so gathering all his strength, he lifts himself out of bed, and slowly he makes his way to the kitchen, and he starts on his dying day to cut himself just a slice of that kugel. And just then Bessie, his devoted wife of 65 years, comes into the kitchen and snatches the kugel and grabs it out of the poor guy's hand, and she shouts at him, "Sam, don't even think about touching that kugel. You know I made it for the Shiva." It happens that mourning together becomes a challenge when people lose priority, when they should be making it about comforting us, but instead they make it about themselves, or they don't know what to say. It happens. Can we forgive them for that? Is it possible? But those who do know what it means to lean on Jewish community in the hardest moments, to be a part of a nightly minyan like the minyan we have here every single night, when there's just nowhere else you can go, people who know what it means to come into this building with our hearts laid bare, know that we all walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That's true. But there can be, in Jewish community like this one, always someone on the other side of that valley beckoning you, keep walking, or walking through it with you, or holding your hand in that sadness and in that laughter of shared experience. Someone who says, hey, the finish line is just up ahead. It's just another mile or two. Someone who after the race says, let's get a meal, like our wonderful Friday night group knows so well as they support each other through so much. If you want to run fast, run alone. If you want to run far, make sure you're running together as individuals, as a community. We have far to go. The year is just getting started, 5784. And I look forward to all that is to come at the beginning of this really great season for us in my third year as your rabbi. October 22nd, looming large in my mind, 26.2 miles. I've been speaking now for 20 or so minutes, but really the only word I can think of is oi. And in the same way, 5784 is looming above all of us. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, on Yom Kippur is sealed what will be. This year will bring its share of tests and turns, its share of easy paths, its share of uphill battles. When it does, will you hold close to what anchors you in life? Will you face the twists and turns of this life with perseverance and faith? Will you be there for one another and those you love in the ways that really matter? Yizkor beckons us now. Today, we mourn for those lost decades ago, and we mourn for those lost recently, those who lived full and blessed lives, and those who were taken from us far too soon. The road ahead, without the ones we remember today, without the ones we love is not an easy one. Yet I know the race isn't over, even after it's over. One road ends and another begins. The story of their lives, we pray, continues through us as we hold close to them now, as we walk, as we run through the ups and the downs of life, as we stand together, as we pray together, as we hold close to each other now. Let us rise for Yizkor as we remember them.